Hey class, I hope everybody's having a good day. We are talking about today, we're going to talk about the Cold War. We're going to talk about the arms race. What was the arms race? Well, the arms race was a race to see who could have more nuclear weapons between the United States and the Soviet Union. Who could have the best weapons, the most nuclear weapons, and have these stockpile of nuclear weapons where it would deter the other superpower, whether it was Soviet Union or the United States, from attacking the other. This was the arms race. So during the Cold War, the United States and the Soviet, they they became engaged in this nuclear arms race. All right. They spent billions and billions of dollars trying to build up these big stockpiles of nuclear weapons. And like the goal was to hey, we got more nuclear weapons and it will deter you, it will keep you from attacking us. All right. Uh, by the end of it, around 27% of the Soviets' total gross national product was on the military. And this is what it crippled their economy because they were spending so much money on this military. It crippled their economy and it eventually brought the collapse of the Soviet Union.
The arms race. During the Cold War, the United States and the Soviet Union became engaged in a nuclear arms race. They both spent billions and billions of dollars trying to build up huge stockpiles of nuclear weapons. Near the end of the Cold War, the Soviet Union was spending around 27% of its total gross national product on the military. This was crippling to their economy and helped to bring an end to the Cold War.
All right. So, the nuclear bomb. The United States was the very first to develop a nuclear weapon with the atomic bomb. They did this through the Manhattan Project during World War II, and they used this during World War II. At the end of it, they ended the war with Japan by dropping not one, but two nuclear bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So they were the first to develop the first atomic bomb and use it, and one hadn't been used since then, thankfully. Uh, and hopefully it never gets used again because these are just weapons of mass destruction. They wipe up everything within miles and miles of wherever it hits. So, but the United States was the first to develop nuclear weapons.
The nuclear bomb. The United States was the first to develop nuclear weapons through the Manhattan Project during World War II. The U.S. ended the war with Japan by dropping nuclear bombs on the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
All right. They were extremely powerful weapons, what nuclear bombs are. They can destroy an entire city. They can kill tens of thousands of people. All right. And the only time nuclear weapons have been used was in World War II, at the end of World War II against Japan. And it was to force Japan to surrender finally. They were kind of hard headed after the first one, after the first bomb was dropped, and did not want to surrender. So they said, "Hey, we'll just drop another one on another city," and they did. And then finally they surrendered. So the Cold War was predicated on the fact that neither side wanted to engage in this nuclear weapon war. All right, they because they could destroy a lot of the civilized world with these nuclear weapons. That's what they were capable of doing if they used these. So that's what the Cold War was. A lot of it was about.
Nuclear bombs continued. Nuclear bombs are extremely powerful weapons that can destroy an entire city and kill tens of thousands of people. The only time nuclear weapons have been used in a war was at the end of World War II against Japan. The Cold War was predicated on the fact that neither side wanted to engage in a nuclear war that could destroy much of the civilized world.
All right. So it started the arms race. On August 29th, 1949, the Soviet Union successfully tested its first atomic bomb. This was a few years later. This was like 4 years later after the United States had done theirs. The world was shocked, and they didn't think the Soviet Union was this far along in a nuclear development, but they were. And the arms race had begun when this was announced.
Start of the arms race. On August 29th, 1949, the Soviet Union successfully tested its first atomic bomb. The world was shocked. They did not think the Soviet Union was far along in their nuclear development. Arms race had begun.
All right, in 1952, the United States detonated its first hydrogen bomb, not the atomic bomb, but the hydrogen bomb. This is the hydrogen bomb here. This was an even more powerful version of the nuclear bomb or the atomic bomb. And so The Soviets followed that up by exploding their first hydrogen bomb in 1953, a year later. So they were developing these stronger and stronger nuclear weapons that were weapons of mass destruction. Like I said, they could kill tens of thousands of people at one time.
Start of the arms race continued. In 1952, the United States detonated the first hydrogen bomb. This was an even more powerful version of the nuclear bomb. The Soviets followed up by exploding their first hydrogen bomb in 1953.
All right, in the 1950s, both countries they started developing what was called intercontinental ballistic missiles, or ICBMs, and they could be launched from a long range as far away as 3,500 miles. So they didn't have to be as close to wherever they were shooting at in order to launch them, and for them to hit their target. They could be 3,500 miles away. All right, the United States from North Carolina to California is 3,000 miles. So they could launch it all the way across there. All right, as long as it was within distance. The intercontinental ballistic missiles, what they're called, or ICBMs.
ICBMs. In the 1950s, both countries worked on developing intercontinental ballistic missiles, or ICBMs. These missiles could be launched from long range, as far away as 3,500 miles.
All right. So, well, with them developing these missiles, they wanted to have a defense against it. So both sides continued to develop new and more powerful weapons. The fear of what would happen if war broke out spread. So militaries began to work on defenses such as large radar arrays to tell if a missile had been launched. They also worked on defense missiles that would shoot down ICBMs.
Defense. As both sides continued to develop new and more powerful weapons, the fear of what would happen if war broke out spread throughout the world. Militaries began to work on defenses such as large radar arrays to tell if a missile had been launched. They also worked on defense missiles that could shoot down ICBMs.
People also built bomb shelters and underground bunkers where they could hide in case of a nuclear attack. There were deep underground facilities that were built for leaders of countries, government officials like the president, for example. They were built for high-ranking government officials where they could reside safely. They could go there in case something like this did happen, and there was a nuclear weapon that was launched. So you had bomb shelters, you had underground bunkers, and then you had underground facilities for the government officials, such as the president.
Defense continued. At the same time, people built bomb shelters and underground bunkers where they could hide in case of a nuclear attack. Deep underground facilities were built for high-ranking government officials where they could reside safely.
All right. One of the major factors of the Cold War was the term mutual assured destruction, or MAD. Mutual assured destruction. And it meant was both countries could destroy the other country in case of attack. So, all right, if one shot off an attack, one shot off a missile, and they were assured, hey, we're going to get an attack back from them before this missile hits where it's going to go. It wouldn't matter how successful the first strike was. The other side could retaliate. All right, they could destroy the country which first attacked. So it was mutual assured destruction. Both sides, meaning both sides were going to get destroyed. So neither side ever used nuclear weapons because the cost was too high.
Mutual assured destruction. One of the major factors in the Cold War was termed mutual assured destruction, or MAD. This meant that both countries could destroy the other country in the case of attack. It wouldn't matter how successful the first strike was. The other side could retaliate and destroy the country which first attacked. For this reason, neither side ever used nuclear weapons. The cost was too high.
All right, then you had Detente. All right, Detente took place in the 70s. All right, and it's where both sides, hey, they realized, all right, something's got to give here. All right, we can't have all these nuclear weapons. We need to get, reduce some of these. All right, and they started to take softer lines toward each other, and the easing of relations was called Detente. Detente is where they started easing relations. Hey, okay, we can't do this. It's getting very expensive for both countries. The arms race is, and we've got to do that. We can't. We've got to warm up to each other instead of being at each other's throats. And so, because we just can't do that. We can't go on. It's too expensive, and plus we don't want to destroy the world by shooting off nuclear bombs at each other.
Detente. As the arms race heated up, it became very expensive for both countries. In the early 1970s, both sides realized that something had to give. The two sides began to talk and take a softer line towards each other. The easing of relations was called Detente.
All right. Then you had SALT 1 and SALT 2. They wanted to slow down this arms race, and the countries agreed to get rid of some of their nuclear weapons through SALT 1 and SALT 2 agreements. SALT stood for Strategic Arms Limitation Talks. So, okay, what this was, the United States said, okay, we're going to get rid of some of our nuclear weapons. We need y'all to do the same thing. Soviet Union said, we're going to get rid of some of ours. We need y'all to do the same thing. So they wanted the amount to go from here to reduce their arms. All right, to reduce how many nuclear weapons they had.
SALT 1 and 2. In order to try to slow down the arms race, the countries agreed to reduce arms through the SALT 1 and SALT 2 agreements. SALT stood for Strategic Arms Limitation Talks.
All right, so the end of the arms race. For the most part, the arms race came to an end with the collapse of the Soviet Union at the end of the Cold War in 1991. When it came to, there was no more arms race. We're not building more and more nuclear weapons. It came to an end when the Soviet Union collapsed because of the economy.
End of the arms race. For the most part, the arms race came to an end with the collapse of the Soviet Union at the end of the Cold War in 1991.
All right, comprehension questions. All right, what two countries were most involved in the arms race during the Cold War? A, the U.S. and the Soviet Union. B, Canada, or C, Britain. It was the United States and the Soviet Union.
Ding, ding,
both of them they were both superpowers during this time, and they said, okay, we're going to build nuclear weapons. We're going to build more nuclear weapons and more nuclear weapons until we make sure y'all are not going to attack us. Number two, what type of weapon was designed by the Manhattan Project? A, a knife, B, an atomic bomb, or C, a bat? It was B, the atomic bomb. The Manhattan Project built the atomic bomb. Then it was used in World War II against Japan.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
Number three, what were the missiles called that could launch from long distances? A, rockets, B, firecrackers, or C, ICBMs? They were called ICBMs, or intercontinental ballistic missiles.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
Number four, what was it called when the countries agreed to reduce the arms? They agreed to reduce their nuclear weapons and their arms. Was it A, SALT 1 and 2, B, pepper, or C, sugar? It was called A, SALT, Strategic Limitation Talk. Strategic, I'm missing something. Hold on. Strategic Arms Limitation Talks. I'm sorry. Strategic Arms Limitation Talks. SALT, Strategic Arms Limitation Talks. And that is our last question. Let's see if I was right with that one.
Ding, ding, ding.
All right, that was right. SALT is what it was called. I will be back next time. We will be talking about the space race with the next one, because that's another little mini war in the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union. And I will see you next time. You all have a very good day.